Welcome back, guys. Today we're going to be talking about sets and tuples. So let's go ahead and start with sets. Oops, I can't type. So to give you an example set, a set is basically much like a list, except for it doesn't have the indexing function of a list, meaning that you can't call a set with a square bracket of 0 and it returns the first element value. That doesn't work with sets. It's basically just an unordered list. Let's think about it that way. So to show you an example, I'm going to say my set, and I've typed this out already, is equal to item 1, item 2, and item 3. So if I say my set and square bracket 0, it returns an error, just like how I just said it would. They're not indexed whatsoever. However, they do have the same sort of methods that most lists would. You have union, pop, add, copy, clear, update, remove, discard, which is the same thing as remove, and so on. So if I were to do pop, just like how I can do a list pop, where in a list it removes the last element of the array, in a set it removes an arbitrary set element, so it could be any particular random element. So usually it just goes with the first element instead of the last one. And it did. It removed the first element, and that was item 1. So that's pretty much a set. You would use it for example, if you have a large set of data, you don't need it to be indexed, you want to save computing power, especially in Python, because Python can be quite slow sometimes. You want to save computing power, memory, and you have a large set of data that's potentially throwaway data, you put them in a set, and you just call it a day. So now with all that said, let's go ahead and move on to tuples. So tuples must be couples. If tuples do not have tuples must be couples or more. Let's put it that way. If tuples don't have more than 2 particular elements in the tuple, then it's effectively a string. And let me show you. So if I say my tuple is equal to item 1, and then item 2, and item 3, and item 4, and take a look at the type, it's actually a tuple. But if I say my tuple is equal to just item 1, now notice how I'm declaring the tuple, whereas in dictionary I use curly braces, in set I use curly braces, and in lists I use square braces. In tuples, I use parentheses, and that's how tuples are declared. But in this case, where I only have the one element, it doesn't actually work. You cannot have just a singular element and still make it be a tuple. If you take a look at the type of that singular element tuple, it's actually just a string. And if you try to call a index value of your one element tuple, it behaves just like a string, and it gives you the first character instead of the first actual element. So if you say that you have at least a couple or more elements in your tuple, then you call your actual index value number, you get the whole element or the value return rather than just the character like which you do in a string. And if you take a look at the type of my tuple after you declare more than one element value, it's actually a class tuple. So potential gotcha there if you try to use a tuple and only have one particular item. So be careful with that. And the other thing about tuples is that they are immutable, meaning that you cannot change the value of a tuple from what it already is. You can add, you can potentially remove, but you cannot change them. And let me explain this a little bit. So let's say that I have a list, and it's equal to the same set of things. I can change the existing value of item 1 and change it to say item 4, right? And I have actually changed the element from item 1 to item 4, as you can see here. But you cannot do that in a tuple. You can't say my tuple 0 is now equal to item 6, for example, right? Tuple does not support item assignment, so they are immutable. You cannot change an existing value of a tuple index to a new value, and that is specifically there for security reasons. If you need some sort of like immutable variable, you would want to store in a tuple, passwords, usernames, whatever case might be, and make sure that, or a potential data type that you don't want to be malformed, you would want to put it in a tuple. And that's the benefit that it gives us. The downside with tuple is that if you have just one element in a tuple, then it's not gonna work as a tuple. It's just a string or whatever the value type is, and so on. And that's pretty much the basics of tuples and sets. So I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.